Hello and welcome to Supreme Commander Forged Alliance Forever. Today we continue the coverage of Swakkel's Spring Invitational, and we are in the quarterfinals still. Espiranto faces off against Petric, and the first map is Rusting Iron Roundel. So Petric actually finished second in the group stage after a surprise defeat 2-0 against Paralon in that group. So Petric is actually the lower seed. Espiranto qualified top of his group, and that means that this map is Espiranto's choice. It's a best of 5, and so that means three wins are necessary to qualify or continue on in the tournament into the semis. So let's see how both these guys do. Espiranto ends up with UEF and Petric with Seraphim. One of the things I realized is that Espiranto actually didn't understand some of the rules of the tournament around faction selection. What's supposed to happen is you pick a primary and secondary faction, and you ban one faction from your opponent. And Espiranto seemed to be under the illusion that there was no primary and secondary faction picks. There were only, you would just pick 2 factions, and then if the opponent didn't ban one of them, then you would just get to pick which one you want, which is, well, that's simply not the case. You get your first pick if it's not banned. That's the scenario. So that's why he's made that comment in chat. Esperanto's lab fails. It is reclaimed by Petric, and Esperanto again resorts to the chat to express his disappointment and frustration. So you can see that's actually a decent little lab or a scout there. Espiranto, Petric looking similar on the front with the engineer, but Petric perhaps a bit faster to this expansion. Well, certainly faster. And Petric also has a bomber out. His scout needs to get moving and start finding some targets. There's an inti coming from Espiranto, and Petric is looking for the NG kill, and he does not get the bomb. He actually instead goes towards the base and aims at this engineer. There's no drop though. Because of the dodge, the bomber actually fails to drop. And yeah, this is taking a long time for the first bomb to drop here. And now there's an anti-air out and an inti. One engineer goes down. Still potential for more damage with micro. Okay, the engineer at the front, it was possible to get that kill, but it didn't happen. On the other side though, what does happen is Petric gets in behind the inti that kills the bomber and kills it with his own inti, so that's a good kill. To get trades the bomber for an inti and 1 engineer. So not the greatest bomber, but not the worst either. Decent kill there in a little 2v1, and Petric turns on the cloaking and stealth on the Celine, and will leave it there for the rest of the game most likely, unless it's reclaimed by an attack moving engineer. So that's going to provide him extremely nice intel on this entire expansion for potentially ever. We also have a Celine here hidden in plain sight, and Esperanto's moving in on the right side with those 2 tanks to attack the hydrocarbon, or the engineers building it more precisely. So in the base we have 4 factories, 1 about a quarter of the way, and an air factory. In Petric's base we only have 3 land factories. And he has another bomber out. He's also continuing to win air control. This is how you maintain air control. As this Celine now looks for kill and may go back to cloaking afterwards. That's a nice kill. The 2 NGs that were building a Hydra are saved from the 2 tanks. It's a very good defensive play there from Petric, and the bomber moves out to find this engineer, which is trying to build a Hydra. And he has found him. Also killed some reclaim next to the engineer. Another Engie under attack. There will be no dodge. And also 250 damage done to a tank. And engineers in the base now under attack from this same bomber as the air factory is paused. And yeah, as I was saying, this is how you win air control. You as soon as you're well, you keep taking the favorable trades. If you keep fighting 3 versus 1, then there's no hope of you ever losing air. You will dominate air forever without even having to build additional inties, really. Now it's obviously can be tricky to achieve that. But that's the dream, and now he bombs the air factory, perhaps not realizing that it's actually paused, but still a good kill. I mean, that's half an intie that has been bombed there. It's disappeared. Still a good kill, whether the air factory's paused or not. It will eventually be unpaused, as it is now, and now, well, Espinosa has to start from scratch as another bomber arrives and bombs the hydro. And it is gone now, and so Petric also protecting his tanks. He doesn't commit here in this fight. He has certainly lost some units, taken perhaps some unfavorable trades, but in the end buys plenty of time to get a PD. Has still enough units in this area that he won't get pushed through, that's for sure. And the bombers are really doing everything right now, creating the difference. In the middle, both ACs were fighting back and forth, just shooting each other, draining HP, which overall might turn out to be good for Espiranto, as when you trade HP on the commanders, you will allow yourself much higher chances of getting a draw. And at this point, Petric has a very nice lead. And so the draw is really what Esperanto may need to aim for. PD up in this top side will prevent any tanks from moving in, and the bombers continue getting engineer kills and tank damage as well. As now Esperanto dropping quite low, 2,600, and 3 bombers come in and land on him. That is nasty. 1,600 HP on him now. He is pretty close to his first vet though. And he really needs to hit that vet very quickly, but I mean, Petric has so much more HP. 2 inties now from Esperanto. Finally some air involved for him, and taking out the bombers. He's down to 1,000 HP at the moment. Cannot afford to get into range of the enemy commander, as he will very likely never get back out of range. 6, 7 factories for Esperanto, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 factories for Petric. 42 tanks and 5 Zuis versus 27 tanks. This is a very convincing lead for Petric, and he just simply needs to not allow himself to get drawn. Esperanto moves in, searching for that elusive veterancy, but he's dropped to 100 HP. And just before he gets the vet, he goes down. And Petric takes the win. Convincing win there for Petric. And dare I say, a bad choice of map by Esperanto. We've seen some bad map choices, and that was one of them, in my opinion. I would not pick into a 5x5 against Petric unless I was extremely confident in my performance on that particular 5x5. And I think Esperanto might have learned something there in this series, well, in this game so far. So let's quickly move on to game number 2. That's a solid win for Petric, and he will get to choose the second map. So where we'll find ourselves is on Crazy Rush. Apologies for whatever happened there. Some bit of a black screen or something. But yeah, so we have a Seraphim Mirror. And the map is Crazy Rush, as we said, selected by Petric. Esperanto has beaten, if I I'm trying to recall exactly when, but I'm sure Esperanto has beaten Petric on this map. Perhaps it was in an end of year tournament, a Legend of the Stars tournament, I think. So yeah, again, maybe an unusual pick, but we'll see how Petric does here. So we have yeah, similar, well, not the same opening. Petric goes for a mechs and he goes for a factory, then P-gens. Espiranto goes for P-gens followed by a factory, followed by mechs. This is probably, I think probably the most common opening is two mechs, two P-gens, factory, and then, you know, building some mass. I think this is the most common opening, but there's several ways to build in the opening of Crazy Rush, which is quite interesting. And I don't think there's any definitive best way. I'm fine, says Petric. I wonder what that means. Maybe there's some lag or something. I don't know. Maybe he thinks he messed his build order, but it doesn't really look like it. So Celine arrives and actually takes a lot of damage and gives none in return. A couple of shots landed there, but the tank is on the way. Very early tanks from these guys, especially from Petric. Another one, another early tank. I have to admit that I don't really understand the approach of these tanks. The tank battles seem extremely unimportant to me, so I don't really get the approach of building these early tanks. Perhaps someone can explain it to me. Perhaps the man himself can. But yeah, overall Petric made solid opening. Actually looks to be ahead on power and is making second air. And that's going to be a bomber very soon. Meanwhile, Espiranto going for more eco-heavy approach, which basically means front-loading a lot of power. That's how you go for a longer term. And actually, okay, the tanks have arrived and begin shooting at engineers. That NG actually does go down, which surprises me. And the ACU now is not actually building. Well, he goes back to building now. But yeah, no scouting intel at all. The Celine obviously has died, and here comes a bomber from Petric. Bomber on the way for Espiranto as well. Tank arrives in the base with low HP. Starts firing. No. Oh, that's actually scouting. Is what that is. That's what that is. That's not an attack. That's simply a scout. Bomber also scouted as it arrives out of the factory. Bit of micro there and a nice drop. Another engineer goes down. That's 2 down, but now you can see the engineers very heavily split. Oh, except these guys. Ouch. And the final shot of the anti-air takes down the bomber. The scout, or the Inti, now flies directly past the bomber, and the anti-air wasted a couple of shots on the air scout. The bomber misses its first bomb, and it won't miss the second. Oh my god, it kills an NG, but look, 1, 2, 2, 5, 8, 11, 13 P-gens at once got damaged there. Oh, just build bombers and kill all of those P-gens, and good god, what would you do? What would you do? So yeah, another thing about bombers is that when they force the engineers to split in every direction, it makes, well, obviously it wastes a lot of time because the engineers are walking, and also it splits the engineers up. You want the engineers concentrated if possible. The problem is it's too dangerous to really do that. You risk too much damage at once. So yeah, bombers obviously they're just extremely good. Really, if there's maps where you need tons of engineers to, because there's so much mass, there's so many resources, then bombers are good. That's as simple as that, because you're gonna have so many targets, and you can really, the engineers are so valuable that killing them, it just does great work for you. Similar to, yeah, similar idea on the ditch, or perhaps the Rosa, or even, you know, Desert Arena to a lesser extent. These kind of maps, bombers can really shine there because of the power of the engineers. So Petric with a solid lead. Oh, big overflow of mass there. He's just struggling for, well, to spend his mass, I guess. That's why it's overflowed. And yeah, a lack of tanks at the moment, or at least a lack of tanks in good positions. He's forced to defend now as about 10 tanks, well, 7 tanks and some anti are trying to get in behind. Those are not really gonna do too much, I feel. On the other side, a more promising attack here, but again, there's only really one mechs to kill. No engineer in the area. I don't know where that NG has gone. Perhaps retreated away. These tanks will get cleaned up, and the bombers come in, kill 3 engineers, damage the mexes. I think the pigeons would be a great target still. You can just suicide several bombers in, and it's going to be worth it, in my opinion, to do that damage to the power, because the power is one of the limitations. The power and build power are the limitations for Petric at the moment. Espiranto's resource bar looks a lot less healthy than Petric's. Petric's looking like he has a nice balance. He's spending his mass, and Espiranto struggling for resources, mass and energy, and overall just seems to have a lot less going on in his base, although he does have quite a decent amount of factories at the moment. Doesn't really look like more than Petric, but yeah, Petric looks to have a solid position right now. Static anti-air is pretty essential on this map, by the way. Do not be surprised to see quite a bit of static anti-air going up, because, you know, once again, it's the strength of the bombers that dictate this. T2 land on the way for Petric. He is 68% there. The first T2 P-Gen is an important milestone. A couple of bombers coming in for Petric. Now, are there any anti-air? I don't see any. Oh, well, that guy got shot down, so I guess there's some. There goes a couple of engineers. One engineer over here goes down. There are inties. There's also engineers going down to the Zooies here, which is quite nice damage, slowing down the factory production. Towards the front line, that bomber goes down just before it can drop a bomb. And Petric instead moves in with some tanks to, again, kill more engineers. Very nice raiding here. And perhaps he can keep running because he actually has more units. All you really want to do is just avoid shooting into factories. That's the main thing you want to avoid if you can. Yeah, good air control from Petric, and he is, well, that's an annoying Celine, but overall not a huge deal for him. T2 Pigeon halfway completed. Meanwhile, I don't see T2 at all for Espiranto. Also, Espiranto really lacking in expansion in terms of his mass. I mean, it looks okay, but I don't think it's similar to what Petric has. Let's take a look. That's 70 T1 mexes versus 67. So actually, it is very similar. Quite similar. There's no T2 in here either, so that's not playing any part. T2 land is finished, and the T2 NG is coming out. So we should probably see many T2 support factories. Certainly Petric is on the way with several. 6, 7, 8, maybe more somewhere else. But yeah, and also air factories going up. One of them going to T2, others building bombers on repeat. And quite nice damage from Petric here. Sending the Thams in. And yeah, with Thames alone, he's not really going to get through the factories, that's for sure, but can still just put on pressure, get some decent trades, and he has very nicely compact army there. But now it will go down to reinforcements. Decent raid from Espiranto, and he does seem to be able to get these annoying tanks in behind more readily than Petric. I wonder if Petric is lacking in intel. That seems to be the problem. Yeah, he just threw up a radar here. Maybe he lost one along the way, like here on this decal. But yeah, that should stop tanks getting in from the side. But now forced to react to the right hand side. A huge mass stall right now, so not enough mass scaling. Plenty of build power scaling though. This is good. He's on the way to T3 land. He's about halfway, and he's got good T2 support factories, which means he's going to get the Ilshis coming out. Ilshi's very, very good on this map. I mean, they're just an exceptionally good unit in general, and yeah, Seraphim players should really lean into that on this map. Obviously, the Zui and Ilshi combo. What can you say about it that hasn't been said already? It's just fantastic unit combo to have available. There are a lot of support factories coming, but you can see, I mean, Petric already has many Ilshis on the field, 7 already. That's already a significant force. They're exceptionally good against T1 units. And he has 12 factories producing them. Maybe some factories should produce T2 NGs. It's quite nice to have those on repeat. T3 land is finished, and we should see probably this T2 PGen maybe finished, and then follow it up with a T3 PGen, and maybe the Ilshi production will actually already be enough to win this game, because he's going to reach the production here. Esperanto with, well, he does have some mass. Let's see. Let's count the mexes now. 94 versus 127, so that's a much bigger gap than we saw previously. And Petric looks to be in the driving seat. Many factories going to go down. Several mexes are going to go down here. These are all doomed in my eyes. Some of these factories, by the way, were idle. They have now been switched on and are now producing Ilshis. But will the Ilshis get out of the factory? If Petric takes a left turn here, and with the Zuis and the Ilshis, he may be able to just kill everything. And there go all the factories. Okay, there go the PGens, there go the HQ, there go all the mexes. And one by one, everything dies. And Esperanto completes that protracted Control K. I think he perhaps wasn't too pleased with how that game went. Petric, with a very good map choice there, thoroughly outplayed Esperanto. Really, Esperanto didn't ever seem to have any foothold in the game there. Petric took a lead, kept a lead, grew a lead, and I think everything was coming to an end just with this T2 army that's on the doorstep. I mean, 18 Ilshis. Maybe not enough Zuis, too many Thams, but like bombers as well. This was a crushing position already. Esperanto throws in the towel, doesn't waste his energy on a game that he feels he cannot win, and well, I feel it's very unlikely he could win there as well. So fair enough. He goes down 2-0 and puts himself in, well, he's in a very tough position. Not that he necessarily put himself there. Maybe Petric is the one who put him there. So let's look at game number 3. And see if this series will go beyond a 3-game sweep for the favorite. The lower seed, but the favorite, it has to be said. That would be Petric. So, good lands, map selected by Esperanto. A map that has been around for a while. I think it's created by Lionheart, who created, well, you might recognize some features of this map from Crimson Feud, in terms of the color palette, maybe some of these mountains and things. So it's not, well, it's, you know, it's based on Badlands, but it's very, very different to Badlands, I would say, in terms of how it plays. Way more reclaim, sort of a disgusting amount of reclaim. It says 25,000 there. That is quite a lot. And there's a lot of these 10 mass rocks. Actually, you see these rocks that don't show up, they have less than 10 mass in them. I think they've taken damage from the gating in commander. I think that's why they're, if you look at the, it's kind of in a circle here around the commander, so that's why they have less than 10 mass. So Espiranto shouts out the boys in Twitch chat who are watching. This game was casted live on twitch.tv/faflive with Swackle, and I'm not sure who was his co-caster at the time, but I think it would either be the Duelist or ArchSimCat. So if you want to see them dual cast it, and you want to see, well, all the rest of the live coverage of that tournament, from the qualifier to the group stage to the 2 days of playoffs, then head over to that Twitch channel and check out the VODs, and also follow them to see, follow the channel to see future tournament coverage. So we have a lab. Whoa. We have a lab from Espiranto. A couple of factories who had to finish at the same time, so Espiranto doesn't decide to walk to the Hydra with the commander, uses the reclaim to fund the building with his commander, and the engineers go to the Hydro. Petric, with a slightly different approach, decides to walk to the Hydro. It is quite close. This may be the approach that I take in the future, to be honest. Makes things a little bit simpler and also more concentrated in terms of where the build power is located. So now we have 4 factories up for Petric. We have a 4th factory about to finish for Espiranto, but it looks like Espiranto has maybe a couple more units. Let's see, 3 units for Petric, and they're all kind of in the back of his base, attempting to defend. Will an engineer go down, or will the factory do everything needed to protect that position? Lab gets out of range of the tank and heads for this engineer who has been abandoned by his buddy. And a bomber comes in towards these 3 engineers. Will there be a dodge? Looks like we might lose 2 NGs here. Yes, there they go. And the bomber is killed by the NT. Oh, the lab is actually finding this NG. Will it escape though? No, the lab goes down, but it does get an engineer kill. Quite a nice kill as well. Something died here. That's oh, that's the mole that was with the lab, and already the horde is at the gates. Look, there's Mantis heading directly into the main base already. 10 Mantis on the field, 2 of them in front. Get a very nasty trade. Yeah, excellent trade there from Petric. Good defense. But you can see this is kind of the difference, I think, between Badlands and Goodlands. The opening on Goodlands is on steroids in comparison to the Badlands opening. I mean, the Badlands opening is quick, but it's not this quick, and also the map is not quite as open. And yeah, so I think there's more room for just endless aggression fueled by reclaim all across the map, and a real steroid build order as well on top of it. So really the gameplay is very, very different in my view to Badlands. That's a nice raid there. 4 mexes are completed at least, but the factory is barely begun. Hydrocarbon going up. Another hydrocarbon going up on the left. Meanwhile, Esperanto already has this one, and it's not yet decided to go for this. Instead, is taking reclaim in the craters with engineers, as Petric tries to get his own run by on the left side. It looks like he will be relatively successful. Well, it looks like he's not getting to the back anyway, which is sad for him, and also maybe he's going to leave the mexes behind unraided. So not so good. Esperanto getting the better damage for sure here. That's another nice engineer kill, denying 2 mexes. Another couple engineers go down here, denying the factory once again, the same factory that was denied before. And we have a mantis in the back already with 2 kills, lurking, searching for targets. And look, he's looking for that mantis. A couple of tanks on the side trying to block him. As just, yeah. Espiranto, how has he kept these units alive? How has he got in with these units and started killing mexes? He should finish the mexes off at this point. Get rid of those. Force them to be rebuilt. And Petric on the other side, again, trying to do his own stuff as well. But this doesn't seem to be as... Well, he just doesn't have as many units in the area. And does he have as many units overall? In general, 20 tanks. That doesn't seem like too many. I mean, Espiranto with 35, actually. So, very low on tanks is Petric. Is he making mexes? He is making 1 T2 mex, at least. I feel the difference... It's strange, because yes, it's quite difficult to understand. Because Petric has much higher score, but he has less tanks available. He has less total mass, slightly. I think we're going to see Esperanto tick to 13k. And yeah, so the hydrocarbon under attack, that would be a nice kill to get for Esperanto. It's dropping very low. Oh, the Lobo just killed 2 mantis, and this guy seems to be in a strange location. That's a weird one. And yeah, it's just endless aggression from Esperanto. He's pouring units across, and there's no PD here. A PD would be huge. Some PDs in different positions. You see a PD here going up, but that's in the same place as the ACU, so maybe not that effective unless the ACU decides to move. Esperanto takes the middle. There's a lot of reclaim here to be taken. He takes the 4 mexes as well. The reclaim will be his. And yeah, this position gets totally run over by Mantis, who refuse to pull any punches. No PD means that these raids are getting huge value, and it's difficult to find time to get a PD up here unless you can get 3, 4, 5 engineers there at the same time. You can rush up a PD, then maybe you have you do have a good chance of getting one up then. A lot of air factories planned for Esperanto, again a sign of just aggression. And another 2 mexes under construction from Petric, as now units pour through the middle and attacks the central expansion, and the ACU tries to move across and shut this out, but one Mantis has already gotten through and may take out this energy. He does successfully. Hydrocarbon under construction, and again, Petric continues to try his best to get these raids off, but the Mantis are faster. The Mantis are much faster, in fact, and Esperanto is just has so many units and is very quick to try and catch these raids. And on the other side, I mean, Petric is just there's no way he's getting through here when he's getting overrun in the same position. So it makes sense that he's really only able to get anywhere on this side, but ultimately he isn't killing mass extractors, and the ones he damages are regenning by the time he gets back to those positions. So the raids are not working out for Petric, but he is ahead on reclaim, he is ahead on mass. The Hydra, which was saved on very low HP, I don't know how this guy died. Maybe he got killed by a Lobo or a bomber or something. But now the Hydra gets finished off. It's immediately replaced. Well, queued to be replaced. And now we see bombers, and yeah, PD goes up in this position by a couple of engineers. But there's so many mass extractors missing for Petric right now. And Espiranto is making the gun, unsurprisingly. And he's taking this reclaim in the middle. And this position, well, the PD turns out to be in a nice location. I think the bombers should go after the PD. And there is a bomb on the PD. If the second guy had done the same thing, this PD could be dead already. But as it is, it continues to get very good kills on the Mantis. Another PD queued at what looks to be... Oh, there goes that PD. Oh, the veterancy actually, just before this, allowed it to survive that bomb. You can see the nice positioning of the PD here, by the way. Just a small overlap. Quite a few anti-air out as well, and T2 land is complete, so we should see some T2 support factories soon, I'd imagine. T2 NGs and T2 NGs for PDs, and well, also 5 Sparkies queued up, so PDs are going to be what Petric aims for here. So maybe he won't go for so many support factories in that case. I don't see any at the moment, so he's going for PDs rather than a lot of T2 land production, but maybe that will be sufficient. But here comes the gun commander. Esperanto does not aim to get stealth, decides I only need the gun, I don't really need to be stealthy right now, I just want to get involved, get on the front line and just maintain a high level of pressure. Again, raids from Petric simply failing, and ultimately donating mass in the long term. Perhaps not in the short term, it depends on how quickly Esperanto gets those tanks up off the ground and into his mass bank. ACU getting very heavily involved, walking straight to the front line, taking out the T2 engineer, and now turns his attention onto the T2PD, the triad, which is almost complete. Finally it finishes, an overcharge comes in and attacks it, and the triad goes down before firing really more than a couple of shots. Petric now rushing his own gun comm. And yeah, now the T2 P-Gen, which was over halfway complete, is now under attack. The T2 land HQ is actually being shot by the gun commander. The Sparkies will be a great target. I mean, there's too many great targets at this point. It's getting completely overrun. Just spam directly through the middle, getting into the base. What can Petric do? I don't see how he saves this HQ. I think that was an overcharge that hit the HQ. Bombers also coming in on the HQ. Mantis overrunning the position. And the T2 HQ is on... Well, it's on 0 HP. It is completely gone. And that is Esperanto's cue to back away and begin cleaning up the army behind him, which is doing a little bit of damage. T2PD does finish, but I mean the T2... Oh, there's what? There's a Sparky. Are there any other Sparkies? There's no T2 engineer alive that can build a T2 P-Gen. The Guncom is alive, but look at these Mantis in the back just destroying so many power generators. And oh, we do have some T2 engineers, so we do see a T2 P-Gen go up on the left side. That is actually quite nice, but still, without it, the HQ has to be replaced, I believe. Sooner rather than later, Sparky goes down to some bombers. PD is getting massive damage, but still, the pressure is endless, and Esperanto is also making some eco behind it. He's also just adding more and more factories. It doesn't look like he's any interest in making T2 land. Maybe T2 air is what's needed here, if anything is needed. Like, this looks like a very solid position. Like, how do you relieve the pressure is the question. Petric is doing his best with the Guncom, getting a lot of damage, but not nearly as much as Esperanto. He's getting similar numbers of kills, but the damage, the level of vet is much higher for Esperanto. The single T2PD is doing God's work, but He needs a few more of those to really comfortably hold on. Look at the number of Mantis and Medusa coming in. Just pouring out of those factories that cover the other side of the map. Petric continues to fight and do his best, but yeah, he seems to be in a huge amount of trouble. Look at them, they're everywhere. Now the left side is where the attack has turned. A lot of T1PDs were here and they are now defeated. There is a T2 Gen, there's one T2PD, another one on the way, but the Mantis and Medusa are just running through, and now Petric dropping a bit lower on HP, below 6k. Espiranto also needs to be a bit careful. He doesn't want to end up with a draw here. He does not want to end up with a draw. This is a great chance to get one back on Petric and bring it back to 2-1. So he has to be a little bit careful. Look at this forward production. That's the ultimate forward production here. Almost in range of the T2PDs. There is a second T2PD here. P-Gen under attack. It will survive this bomb, but it's only on 120 HP. One more bomber can come in and kill this. Actually, the Mantis have an attack order. I feel like they might be coming in after the P-Gen. They are. The shield goes down as well, and the P-Gen is being repaired. And it's saved. It's saved by the NGs. But guess what? There's two bombers coming in and you're not going to save it now. T2 P-Gen goes down. It's obviously going to be no overcharges for Petric. If he was able to afford them already. I mean, look at all this power he's lost here. Endless P-Gens were lost. And there are just more and more factories going up directly in Petric's face. And now Espiranto turns his attention to the commander, who's under 3,500. Now under 3,000. Espiranto over 6k. Espiranto being focused by the enemy comm to attempt a draw. But there's just no time. And Petric is about to run out of health. Espiranto lives quite healthily. And takes a win from Petric, bringing it to 2-1 for Petric. So best of 5, of course. That was a must-win game for Espiranto, and he did win it. There's the T2 Air that I was talking about. He didn't need it in the end. Just the pure Grand T1 Mantis spam was enough. With some good T2 bombing. I think using the ACU to essentially snipe the HQ was huge. Like, if you allow Petric to get some T2 land production, get some pillars, get some Sparkies and T2 PDs up more easily, then it's potentially holdable. But once the T2 HQ went down, it was an extremely tricky position for Petric to navigate. So well played. There's the replacement one. I finally found it. So yeah, well played to both of them. And this will be the end of part 1. Part 2, we will cover the rest of the series. So tune in soon for the conclusion of this best of 5 in the quarterfinal of Swakal Spring Invitational. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.